it was a combination of reasons. I wanted to do something that was a little bit longer, and kind of really pushed into the realms of kind of ultra endurance stuff, and things that really kind of started to test things that were more psychological than physical. And also alongside that, I started to get a lot of injuries with running, so I kind of started to move away from running a little bit and more into the cycling realms. And then my partner and I, Lisa, we entered the Race Around Ireland in 2016, and we set the female pair record for that in 2016. So that was kind of my first entry into ultra cycling, and kind of got the bug then and there. And then this year was kind of moving on from that, I suppose, into the solo world.
Well, I have to say that the stream didn't start on time, so it's going now. I see. And so we need to break in here and just say this is the Ohio Ram Show. The stream didn't pick up right away. And if you do have comments or questions or just say hello, put it in your comment section of either the Facebook page or on a YouTube page, either one. And with any good luck, they'll show up here. We'll diagnose why that didn't start later on. It may have been my fault as much as anything, but at least we're here, folks. So again, welcome, Nikki, to the show.
Thank you.
I think most of your comments about cycling got in there. Mm-hmm. So,
brilliant.
Brian Welch is the person who pinged me about you and said, this woman is about to be the first woman to finish the Jobar 500. And you did indeed, didn't you? Tell us about Jobar's 500, what it's like, what it was like this year, what changes they had to deal with as far as the pandemic goes, and how you did.
How was it? So the Jobar 500s, as it says in the name, is 500 miles. It starts in Dorey, which is in Northern Ireland, and then pretty much goes in a clockwise direction around up to the north coast of Northern Ireland, back down to around Newry, if you know Ireland at all, and then it kind of went back into Dorey in roundabout-ish with a few curls and things in there. It is a very hilly course. I think the elevation was in 8,800 meters. In fact, when I looked on Strava, it happened to be the same elevation as Everest. And we actually got very lucky with the weather. The weather was absolutely beautiful. It was very light winds. It was very cold. On the first night, it got down to about -2 Celsius, which is very, very cold. And in terms of the coronavirus changes, initially, I suppose the race was supposed to be held in May, and they had to move it back to September, just to try and kind of cope with everything. Alongside that, then they had to reduce the numbers quite substantially. So I think initially there was about 75 people entered in the race, and then that came down to about 25 people. And then as the kind of lead up to the race went on, then there was a lot of changes happening in Ireland. So, for example, the night before the race went ahead, one of the counties that we were due to cycle through went into complete lockdown. So to kind of cope with that, then we were asked to try and avoid stopping in that county as much as possible, and just to kind of cycle through. The registration was quite different because obviously everyone was wearing face masks, everyone was social distancing. We were kind of, when they did the briefing, we were all in our kind of pods. So you had kind of 6 people who were all crew or in the same team would sit together, and they would be distanced from everyone else. And then once you got on the road, then everything was pretty much as it would be, because obviously you are by yourself with your crew in a car behind you. So everything, once the race started, I think got a lot easier for the organisers, but they were fantastic. And I think there was a lot of kind of ambiguity and just not really sure. Joe, who organised the race, were fantastic in keeping us in the loop and kind of, I suppose, reassuring us in what the fact that the race would actually go ahead, first of all, but then how they would deal with the restrictions that were coming in.
Okay, well, I see Melanie Dorey has chimed in here.
Really, actually, your sound seems to have gone. I actually can't hear you at all.
Well, I don't know. Yours cut out as well. Am I back with you?
Still can't hear you, I'm afraid.
I can hear both of you.
Okay. Must be something on your side, Nikki. Hang on, everybody.
Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I got you back. Now, can you hear me now? Okay. Let's see. What do we do here, Jim? Let's do a.
Still can't hear you, Lee. I'm afraid. Sorry about this.
I'm gonna try to put up a banner and have her reboot.
Oh, there we are. I think you're back.
Oh, you're back. Okay, very good.
Sorry about that. No idea what happened.
Welcome to the internet.
It's probably the dogs that have pulled the cable out.
There you go.
Well, I always say it's either the string or the tin can, but you know, Nikki, when you watch the news shows, this happens to the best of them, and so
I'm
it's
just making it
nothing.
look more professional. That's what it is.
Just making it look
Definitely.
look like CBS or NBC or
Absolutely,
the BBC
yeah.
for that matter. Yeah. Well, listen, since we got a late start here, I'm going to take the time to interrupt and just say that we have a lot of stuff going on that didn't get aired as far as ultra cycling, and I'm not going to say all of it again. But Ellen Stirrup over in Denmark, she did a lot of did a track record, set 7 world records in one track event. We had Macon Gertke here in Ohio that set a record for Ohio west to east. Valerie Wisniewski up in Michigan today just did west, east, west Michigan. And I believe she's going to set a record 425 miles there. And Jobar in Ireland, good old Joe, we love him, today finished the west, east, west record, probably around 770 kilometers, something like that. And we believe that's probably going to be a world record. And Rob DeCou is doing the Uberman, 21 miles of swimming, 400 miles of cycling on 135 miles of running. It ends in the top of Mount Whitney. Sorry to interrupt on all that, but that got lost in our first startup. And you're going to tell us about Anna May, Jim.
Yeah, basically she was going for the 1,000-kilometer world record and unfortunately had to stop at 696 due to Schirmer's neck. And her coach Marco Blalo, who's a Ram rider, etc., ultra cyclist, was there and I think helped make that decision.
Okay, very good. And just everybody out there watching, be sure to give us a comment or just a hello. Tell us you're here and say hi to us. I see we got a few people watching out here. I'm not going to name names, but I know who some of you are. So at any rate, Nikki, what's your future goals as far as ultra cycling goes?
That's a very good question, actually. Brian Welsh has told me that I'm not allowed to think about it properly for another week, which obviously hasn't happened. But I would say probably for the next... first of all, I'd absolutely love to do the Jobar race again. Like I say, I think it was an absolutely fantastic race. It was so well organised. And I learned quite a lot from it. So there's an awful lot of things that I think I could do differently to make me perform a bit better. So I'd really like next year possibly to have another opportunity to do the race again. Aside from that, I suppose in my half thinking, like as I said to you before, my partner and I did the race around Islands, which is 2,250 kilometres, and it's in around 132 hours to complete it. We did that as a pair 4 years ago, so I would be very tempted to do that again next year, if a solo that is, if the opportunity arises. So there's a few potential plans there. I'm also thinking, I think the 24-hour World Championships that were due to go ahead this year that have been cancelled. I think they're doing a virtual race in a couple of weeks. I think it's on sometime at the beginning of December. So I'd also be quite tempted to give that a go if I've recovered in time.
Outstanding.
What was the thing that you learned on the Jobar 500 that you'll do different?
There were a few bits and pieces, actually. I think primarily the biggest one for me at the moment will probably be nutrition. I probably didn't practice it enough in the lead up to the race. I think I actually entered the race quite late. I entered around June or July time. So I didn't really get a chance to properly practice that kind of nutrition. When I did the race as a pair, obviously as a pair, you end up doing, say, kind of 4 hours on, 4 hours off. So I was quite reliant when I was doing the pair, kind of feeding and getting enough nutrition in during the 4 hours that I was off the bike. And obviously with this race, I was only off the bike probably in total throughout the whole race around about 4 hours. So I think I started to rely quite heavily on kind of carb drinks, and that didn't really sit hugely well in my stomach. So I think I would need to kind of really work on that, and that would make a big difference. And then I had a few, I suppose, issues with my feet, and my shoulders were very sore towards the end of the race. And I think if I could work on ways to make those a little bit less sore, I think that would make a massive difference to my performance. So there's just kind of bits and pieces like that I think now that I've done it as a solo, I could probably kind of move things around a little bit and just make it a little bit more comfortable for me.
Outstanding.
Got any questions, Jim?
How has the pandemic affected your training this year? Have you moved it all inside? Are you still getting outside, or we're getting outside?
Lee, I can't actually hear Jim. Would you mind repeating the question that he asked?
Okay, did you hear that? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't hear him.
You didn't hear Jim?
No.
Again, welcome to the internet. Jim was asking you, he was asking about your training and with the pandemic. Have you done it mostly inside, outside? How's that work for you?
Yeah, pretty much. We were quite heavily locked down for a good few months in Ireland. So a lot of the training that I did was on the turbo trainer, which actually I actually quite enjoyed. I sat and watched Netflix for most of it, to be honest with you. So I use Trainer Road, which is like software, and Brian Welsh, who's my coach, he sets me sessions. So I basically just follow what the session does. And I find it quite good because it's quite efficient training. You can get quite a lot of training benefit from being on the bike kind of a shorter period of time. And then as things started to kind of open up a little bit with lockdown, and as the weather started to get a bit better, I then started to go outside. But I'd say probably 90% of my training was done inside. And again, actually going back to your previous question, that caused me a few problems because when the weather was so cold for the actual race, I wasn't as used to wearing, I suppose, the kind of longer leggings, and the chamois was slightly different in the leggings I was wearing for the race than they would have been when I was doing my training, which caused me a few pain issues as well. But you live and learn.
Well, you learn something every time you go out.
Yeah, absolutely do. Yeah.
That's for certain. Jim, anything else?
No, I think that was it for me today.
Okay, very well. Well, it's certainly glad to have you here, and sorry for that little glitch at the startup.
So it's lovely to be here. Thanks ever so much for having me.
Dorey, he apparently is a proud father. Didn't she do well? Well, of course. Well, that's why she's here. And okay, very good. Well, thank you again for being with us. We appreciate it. Taking time to talk with us here. And
thanks ever so much for having me.
Yeah, well, and I hope in the not too distant future, we'll have you on here again talking about some other great event that you've gone in and smashed.
Absolutely. I'll have chats with Brian and see if we can come up with something as equally as tough.
Well, there's plenty of opportunities out there, and there's all those world ultra cycling records too. Think about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Jobar actually has already been in touch with me to try and suggest a few.
I'll bet he had. He had. Oh,
I told them as long as they were flat.
Okay. Well, Jim, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you both. It was nice meeting you, Nikki, and keep it going.
Thank you, Nikki, and we'll be seeing you again maybe in the not too far distant future, okay?
Sounds good to me. Thank you very much.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.